Sabrina here from Scrappy Tales Crafts, and today I'll be showing you the first 5 cards that I created with the Simon Says Stamp February 2019 card kit. This kit was Valentine's Day themed. I'm going to quickly show you what came in the kit. Now, I realize that today's Valentine's Day, but I figured it's better to post the day of rather than the day after, even though technically part 2 will be posted this weekend and it will be after Valentine's Day. But any of the cards that you see in part 1 and part 2 can easily be replaced as anniversary cards or even wedding cards. So for card number 1, I'm going to cut down this beautiful pattern paper to 4 by 5 1/4. And then I'm going to take a sentiment from the stamp set that says, "Our love story is my favorite." And I'm going to use it as a guide to help me cut a rectangle out of this panel. Now, you don't have to cut a rectangle from this panel. I left this part of the video in just to show you that sometimes you have an idea for a card and it ends up going in a different direction. I at first thought I wanted this window, but you'll see later on I end up covering it. So actually this card it went in several different directions and I had to fix a few things as I went. And sometimes it works where I can salvage a card, other times I just have to scrap it and come up with something different. But luckily I was able to use this really pretty paper and it ended up working out. But you will see mistake number 2 right now. I'm going to ink up the background stamp that came in the kit with some Versamark ink. I'll lay my panel over the stamp and then use some copy paper to really press the stamp into the paper to get a good impression. I did not get a good impression, and you'll see how I will fix that. But first I'm going to stamp the sentiment onto the rectangle where we cut the panel from, and then also onto some craft paper. At this point I wasn't sure which one I wanted to use, so I will decide once I put the panel on which one I like better. So as I'm sprinkling the powder over this panel, I realized that I didn't get a perfect impression. So to make that look totally intentional, I'm going to use my finger and brush away some more embossing powder as I'm heat setting it. And I end up liking the background because the original wood grain paper has sort of a distressed look to it already, and I say that it just adds to the rusticness of the card. That's what I'm going to call it. But yeah, as you can see, as I'm heat setting it, the powder really starts to pop off the background, and I think it adds a really cool extra layer to the paper. But it is really bold, so I will cut down some vellum and lay it over the panel, especially because I do decide to use the wood grain sentiment, and the vellum helps to mute the background down and make my sentiment stand out. I cut the vellum down to be 1/2 inch shorter than 4 by 5 1/4. This left me with a pretty 1/2 inch border, and I thought that added some more interest. And then I popped my sentiment on top of the vellum. I haven't adhered the vellum yet because it is a little bit tricky, and I wanted to cover that window with some more of the wood grain paper. And by doing that, I allow myself to have a place to glue my vellum. But before I do that, I will disguise the fact that I didn't center the window correctly by adding twine to the side that has more paper exposed. So I attach the twine by taping the ends behind the panel with some washi tape, and then I'm going to create a twine bow. And I think this would be a really pretty wedding card. I know light pink and craft are kind of the colors right now for weddings. And speaking of weddings, I want to thank everyone who has left me nice and sweet comments about my wedding. In one of the videos I talked a little bit about my wedding, and I was hesitant to do so because I didn't know if it was too personal, but everyone seems to be really supportive and interested in my life, which is great because I want to talk more about who I am as I continue to grow my channel. So I'm going to now adhere my panel onto the pink card base. I created this card base with the pink cardstock that came in the kit. And so I went really matchy-matchy with this card. And I end up really liking how it looks. I think it looks shabby chic and rustic, like I said. Totally what I was going for, right? And Now I'm just attaching some sequins, and then behind the sequins I put some glue behind the vellum just to secure the vellum more. I do sell my cards, so I try to make sure I add as much glue as possible so that nothing falls apart. For card number 2, I wanted to use the thread that came in the kit, so I'm going to use a paper Smooches die and cut these row of dots, and when you center them side by side you get the necessary dots to create stitching on your card. So I'm going to link a video to Jennifer Mcguire. She uses these dies and gives you a more in-depth tutorial on how to cross stitch on your cards. I'm going to try to show you how I do it and explain it to the best of my abilities, but I think it's easier to watch, and so I'm going to give just a really easy explanation, and then you can watch, and then that's how I learned. I watched my grandma do it, and all I know how to do is this X stitch, so I'm not a pro at all, but it is really relaxing. I love doing it. So what I did there was I took my needle from the back of the card, brought my thread to the top, and I'm holding down the end with my fingers. You can tape it down if you'd rather do that. And then from the top, I'm going diagonally to the hole on the bottom and then going to the back of my card again. And then from the back, I choose another hole that's next to the one I just stitched, bring it back up, and then I go diagonally from the top to the bottom. And that's all I do. I just repeat those steps. I'll show you one more time. I choose a hole from the bottom, bring my needle from the back to the top, and then I move my needle diagonally and poke the needle through the hole and then move to the back again. And then from the back I choose a needle, another hole, bring the thread to the top, go diagonally, and bring the needle to the back again. And this is going at real speed. I will quicken it up. As you can see, once you keep going, you can let go of the end and it won't move. So now I'm going a little bit faster, but again, doing the same thing. I go from the back of the card all the way to the top, then I go diagonally from the top to the bottom to the back. I hope I'm not confusing anyone. Again, I'm going to link down Jennifer Mcguire and then also a real cross-stitcher in case you guys are new to cross-stitching and want to add that to your cards. I think stitching, if you take the time to do it, I think it's really pretty on cards and adds even more of a handmade feel, even though they are already handmade. I don't know, I love doing it too. It's relaxing. And each side took me about 15 minutes each, so it is pretty time consuming. But they gave you a lot of thread in this kit, so I wanted to use it up, otherwise it would just sit in my stash. Once I'm done, I go through some of the holes in the back with my needle and then just snip off the ends, and it won't come undone, especially since I add tape behind it. And then off camera I did the other side. So now I am using a pen to draw out a heart. You can use a die, but I wanted to show you guys that you don't need a die to make really pretty cards. And so I drew it with a pen, and then I'm just cutting it out. You can see I flipped the heart, so I'm using the other side so you don't see the ugly ink. And I wanted to stamp my sentiment onto this heart. I decided to use "You Will Always Be in My Heart." I love the font. This is my favorite stamp in the stamp set. At least sentiment stamp. And I have used it in another card, which I'm going to post at the end. I didn't do a video for it, but it's very similar in the fact that I stamped the sentiment onto some pattern paper. I think it just adds interest. The camera's really picking up the pattern, so it doesn't look as legible as it does in real life. I wanted to mat this heart with some cream paper, so I'm just using my art glitter glue to glue it onto some cream paper, and again I will use my scissors and freehand cut this heart out. I kind of wish I used dies. I'm going to be honest, I'm a really bad cutter, and I blame the fact that I'm left-handed, which it's really just me, but I do add some foam tape to the center of this panel because the thread adds some bulk and I wanted to even it out. So I do add glue behind the thread, and that's going to level the panel. and have it flush against my card base. I am using the black card bases that came in the kit that were already pre-scored. I added some foam tape behind my heart. I do add a double layer of foam tape on the top of the heart, just so that it is level with the stitched panel. I get my foam tape from Uline. It's really cheap, but it's super sticky. You'll see I make a shaker card, and I wanted to add a few more shaker bits, but that was not coming off. So it is really sticky, but I do still recommend it because it is so cheap compared to Scotch. I glued down a few hearts that I stamped onto a cream paper and then also a scrap of pattern paper. Again, I freehand cut those with my scissors. I added a thread bow to the center of the cream heart, and then I added a pearl to the center of the bow, and that will complete card number 2. For card number 3, I wanted to stamp out the trio of roses that came in the stamp set, and I'm stamping it up with some Distress Oxide Antique Linen, and I'm stamping it onto the craft cardstock that came in the kit, and you can see how faint that is. And I used this ink because I wanted to try some no-lined pencil coloring with my Prismacolors, and this is the first time I'd ever done no-line colored pencil coloring, and I really love how it turned out. I wish I used some darker reds. The roses end up looking very tomato-y red, and I think they would have been prettier if they were a little bit darker, but the technique ended up working. I was really intimidated. As soon as I stamped the stamp with that antique linen, I had major doubts. But, you know, it's not perfect, but considering it was my first time, I'm pretty impressed with myself. And this whole coloring took me about 45 minutes, I'm not gonna lie, but coloring is my favorite thing to do, and I don't use my pencils a lot. I'm at my apartment, so I don't have my Copics, and I don't know, I really love how it turned out, and a lot of the footage I cut out because my head is in the way, just so that I can see where I'm coloring, because the ink is so faint, and I also tilt it in the light a lot, so I just cut all of that footage out, and it was already a long video anyway, so I'm just showing you bits and pieces of what I colored, and here is the complete panel. I'm going to trim it down so that it's edge to edge with the leaf and the little rose sapling. I think that little rose bud. I don't know why I said sapling. But before I do that, I will cover this whole image with Wink of Stella. And then again, here I'm going to trim it down just so that it's edge to edge. And then I'm going to take my scissors and just cut the top part of this panel off. I am leaving a little bit of a craft border at the top just to make my life a little bit easier. I'm not a person that likes to fussy cut. I know some people find it super relaxing. It actually stresses me out. Like, if I can have a die for it, I will buy the die. And that will complete the panel. And now I'm creating sort of like a gift card pocket. So I took some of the stripe paper, I cut it down. I think this is like a 3-inch panel, no, 4-inch panel. And I'm scoring it so that I have little tabs. And then I'll add score tape to the tabs. And then I realize I need a bottom tab to create the gift card holder. So I'm going to take my scoreboard again, scored at 1/4 inch. The sides are also scored at 1/4 inch. I'm adding tape to the bottom of the gift card holder now, and then I'm going to tape it down onto my card base. Now I know the lighting is really tragic right now. Like I said, I am so new to YouTube and I film at different parts of the day because I go to school at random parts of the day and I get back when it's kind of dark but not totally dark. So this won't last very long. Actually, this clip is ending very shortly and it will go to normal. But I added just a strip of scrap red. I wanted to tie some more red in from the roses. And here I'm just kind of figuring out what I want to do next. At this point I was kind of like, okay, what do I do now? So I decided to stamp my sentiment and emboss it with some white embossing powder. After my sentiment is heat set, I will trim down the strip to be a little bit shorter so I can add it to my card base. And you can see I added the colored pencil coloring panel into the pocket of the gift card holder. I didn't glue it down, so you can pull it out and you can write a message on it, or you can add the gift card directly to it. That's what I would do. But I thought it was a cute touch, and it was a little bit different than a normal card. So I flagged my sentiment just to add some interest, and then I'm going to add this cut apart from the 6x6 paper stack that came in the kit. I liked that this cut apart had a little bit of red in it, so it tied in the roses. And then I felt that it was still missing something, so I'm going to stamp out this little heart from the stamp set onto some pattern paper and freehand cut that out. I think every card has a pattern paper heart. I think it just adds the finishing touch to every card, and I think it's really cute. So I'm going to pop up the sentiment and the cut apart and add that to my pocket, but first I'm going to take some of the thread from the kit. I chose the medium color red, and I'm just going to add that along the seam of the stripe paper and the other red pattern paper. And then of course I'm going to add a small bow with the same colored thread. I do use separate scissors when I cut my thread. I don't use the same scissors as I cut my paper because thread and ribbon really does dull your scissors. So I have a separate fabric scissor for that. So you can see I added the sentiment and the cut apart, and I pulled the top of the panel out so you can see you can add a gift card to that. I am adding a pearl to the center of the bow. I do that with all of my thread bows. And here I'm just showing you, you can easily put a gift card in. And I really love how this card turned out. I think it's my second favorite card. Okay, for card number 4, we're creating a shaker card. So I'm taking some picked raspberry Distress Oxide ink, inking that up with the background stamp that came in the set. Again, using some copy paper to really press the panel in to the stamp. I am using white Nina cardstock. That is my cat. So he likes to just walk in front of the camera. I know so many other crafters' cats do that, so it's like pretty normal now. And then I went ahead and stamped the heart from the stamp set that has the rose and the leaves in it. And again, I'm going to use my colored pencils. I decided to stamp the heart with Memento ink, and now I'm just coloring it up. Again, I won't show you all of the coloring. I think I just show you one rose and one leaf. Pretty easy coloring. I go from darkest to lightest, and I'm adding the darkest color where the inside of the rose, like where the bud is, and then also where the petals overlap. I decided to color my rose in pink and my leaves in these blue-green colors. I thought that was a little bit different, and after I'm done coloring this, I will fussy cut it. And now we can start working on the shaker. So I'm gluing down the scrap of black. I wanted black behind the heart window. I love hot pink and black together. It's like probably my favorite color combination. Pink is my favorite color, so I think really any color goes good with pink, but especially black. So I added the colored heart on top of the black. I added a light pink frame on top of the die cut heart panel. And now I'm just adding acetate behind the window. I use my ATG tape and also glue to adhere the acetate onto my panel. And I have this foam tape that is already double layered. It's really nice. Like I said, it is from Uline, so it's super sticky, so once it's down, it's down. But I'm still going to link it down below because I would recommend it. The price is really good, and since it is double mounted, you don't have to double layer your foam tape like you normally would for shaker cards, so I do really like this foam tape. So I'm choosing some sequins that are white and clear. I poured off this Hero Art sequin pack, and I'm just picking out the sequins that I want to use, and that happened to be the white and the clear ones. I don't want to put too much in because I don't want to completely cover the colored heart, because I did spend quite a bit of time coloring that. So I peeled back the backing paper on the foam tape, added my panel onto my card base, and that will complete the shaker portion. So now I'm going to work on the sentiment. I'm going to use the sentiment that says, "Even after all this time, I still love you." I love the sentiments in this stamp set. And like I said, I mean, clearly this kit was geared towards Valentine's Day, but I think most of these cards can work for anniversary, and like that first card I think would be a really pretty wedding card. So I just white heat embossed that onto a black strip of paper like the last card, adding some glue to the strip and gluing that down onto my panel. You can see I glued it down crooked, so now I'm just adding ATG tape because that's a little bit safer. You can see I got it crooked again, so I pulled it off, and now I'm actually trying to make it straight. And then I'm just adding a few sequins to the outside of the card. I like to do that with shaker cards just to tie in the outside with the inside, and I do not like the holes in sequins, so I go over the holes with some glossy accents. And that will complete card number 4. I thought this was really pretty. Card number 5 is probably the most simplest card that I made, but it is my favorite. I love how the colors ended up looking on this card. And so what I did was I cut the postcard pattern paper down to 4 by 5 1/4, and now I'm cutting some vellum down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, so it's 1/4 of an inch smaller than my card panel. Now I'm adding some lace from my stash with my art glitter glue. I'm only putting glue behind the places where you wouldn't see the glue, essentially. I haven't glued down the vellum yet because I want to add these cut aparts that came in the pattern paper, and I wanted to mat them with some black. And the cut apart that says "Best Friends for Life, Husband and Wife," that was my favorite cut apart from the pattern paper, so I wanted to use that in this card. I think the saying is just really pretty. I'm going to use my trimmer to trim off the excess black cardstock. Now I'm kind of laying out how I want this to look, and I decided to stamp out the sentiment that says "You are my soulmate," but before I do that, I'm going to trim down this panel 1/4 of an inch so it is now the same size as my vellum. I wanted to add a black mat behind this panel, so that's why I trimmed it down. Now I'm choosing the sentiment, again, "You are my soulmate." I will stamp and emboss that onto some black cardstock with white embossing powder, of course. I did that with pretty much all of my cards, and I just really like the look of black and white. After my sentiment is heat set, I will trim that down into a small strip, and this card ends up looking super shabby chic with the lace. I do add pearls to it, and initially when I got this kit, I did not think shabby chic. I instantly thought of vintage, and a lot of people created vintage cards with this kit, but I noticed that the pink pattern papers really had a shabby chic look to them, and this card ends up being my favorite because of that. I just really love the colors on this card, and the softness, the feminine touch of this card. So now I'm deciding that I want to add the pearls, and I will attach those down with my art glitter glue. So I ended up getting 2 shabby chic cards. I got 2 vintage cards and then 1 kind of edgy looking card. So basically none of these cards look the same. Usually when I get a kit, all of the cards that I create look like they're from the same collection, but not with this kit. Like, I got so many different styles, and this is my first Simon kit, so I definitely think I will purchase their kits in the future. I used to think that you didn't get the value of what you paid for in their kits, but now they've added more to their kits, and I do feel like you get the value, so I definitely will look into working with Simon kits in the future. And I left a gap where the pearls are, where I knew I was going to add my husband and wife cut apart, because I was going to add foam tape behind it and I wanted it to all be level and even. And this card would be perfect to send to a just married couple or a couple that you attend a wedding to. Because of that sentiment, you can just take off the "You are my soulmate," and this would be a perfect wedding card. I will glue this panel down straight onto the vellum. I did cut it so I can tuck it behind the husband and wife cut apart. And then I will trim off the excess pearls and the leftover lace hanging from the ends of the vellum. I know I should have used my fabric scissors, but I forgot. After that is trimmed down, I can add glue behind the paper and behind the lace on the vellum. And then I wanted to mat this panel onto some black cardstock so it would match the cut aparts. But before I do that, I will stamp and cut out my infamous pattern paper heart. I honestly think as soon as I add one of these hearts to the end of my card project, it just finishes it off, and I love the look of these little hearts. I will add foam tape behind it, and then I will add my sentiment, the "You are my soulmate." I played around with where I wanted to put it, but I end up liking it at the bottom right hand corner, so I will attach that with my art glitter glue. And now I will add my black mat. This is cut to 4 by 5 1/4. After I attach that to my pink card base that I created with the cardstock that came in the kit, I will attach my vellum panel, and that will complete card number 5. Thank you guys so much for watching. I unfortunately forgot to film a showcase, and I wanted to post this video on Valentine's Day, so I hope you guys don't mind. If you can, let me know which is your favorite card. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments and I will try to respond to you as fast as possible. If you're new to my channel and you aren't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.